don't say anything obscene. All right, and we're on.
Welcome to the Chip and Joanna Gaines podcast. I'm Chip, along with my host.
I don't like how that just made me automatically Joanna. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit.
Oh, wait.
We can be the Property Brothers instead.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Whatever their names are.
Yeah, I don't remember.
All right, get your coffee. Let's do it.
Sue, yes. What are we drinking, Austin?
I added a slurp there. I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah.
This is from the Cherry River Roasting Company, and it is the Cherry River Blend. It's actually one of my favorite coffees.
Where are they out of?
Richwood.
Richwood.
Yeah, Richwood, West Virginia.
I've been across the Cherry River before, but I didn't know about where they were at.
They actually grow the beans in the Cherry River.
Huh. Is it like the one place where the
That's not true.
where the monkeys, it's monkey poop or cat poop or whatever it is?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Brandon was telling me about that.
It's Richwood.
It's like monkey, I think.
It's Richwood's. This is Richwood's septic water.
No, it is roasted in Richwood, and I've actually met the owner before. Nice guy.
Nice.
So anyway,
Very good.
It's actually one of my favorite coffees.
Yeah, that's not bad actually. That's pretty good. It's better than the instant coffee that you tried to present to us last time. So.
Yeah, that one was bad.
Yeah, that's pretty decent. So what's new?
What's not new?
That's true. It's been what, a month?
It has been at least
Maybe
a month.
3 weeks.
Yeah,
Probably a month, something like that.
yeah, close to it.
Yeah,
Because life is crazy.
life is crazy. So 1 week we try to get together. It doesn't work out that week. You got stuff going on, and the next week I got stuff going on.
Yep.
And then my grandpa died, so then that was more stuff going on. And then you came as a hospice chaplain to my grandpa's house, and I got to see firsthand what he does. He shows up, he kind of lollygags around, doesn't do much, so drinks some coffee and then he leaves. So I don't want to hear any more excuses when I call him and he doesn't answer. Sorry, I was with a patient, because I know what he's doing. All right, I know what this man is capable of during his hospice hours. So keep an eye out there. I'll be filing a formal complaint.
Go for it.
Our complaint department is already getting full for the podcast anyway. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
All right, we got a couple bills to pay here. Some ad reads. So we'll just get these out of the way. This is a little bit, I know that we all do stuff with our job that we don't really want to do sometimes, and this is part of it, This is just the way it is. Have you been seeking financial blessings? Have you been giving an extra $20 in the collection, and you feel like God owes you a little something for it? Fear no more. Kenneth Copeland Ministries is ready to declare God's blessings over your life. Stop living like a peasant and start living like a king. Or living like a kid. The king's kid, that is. Become a partner today. The second one here. Do you need a getaway from the mundane of everyday life? Are you tired of those same old stupid vacations to Myrtle Beach? The vacations where you get left out of the big fishing trip because you're just an in-law and you were never really part of the family? The type of trip where you rode with your girlfriend's mom and stepdad and they argued the entire 9 hours back home? You forgot your headphones, so you were forced to listen to it and decided that dying in a car wreck would be a better alternative. If that's you, then boy, do we have something special for you. Come enjoy the beautiful beaches of the Persian Gulf. Put your money to good use. Spend your next family vacation in Iran. And again, those are some inconvenient, we don't always agree with our sponsors, but we got to pay the bills. We got to turn these lights on. So, so that's where we're at with that.
I hear Jesse Duplantis might become a sponsor here soon too.
Yeah, just to keep us from being sued. Those were all a joke. So I acknowledge that bit of sarcasm there. But I wrote those this afternoon. All right, so we got that out of the way. This next segment is a new one. It's going to be Austin and Sam read. So this week you're going to read, and then the next time I'll read. So you have to pick out a verse with a really difficult name for me to pronounce. And don't tell me what it is. All right. So here you go. This is Isaiah chapter 8, verse 1.
All right. Moreover, the Lord said unto me, take thee a great roll and write in it with a man's pen concerning Marshalahasbaz.
Thank you.
Can I just ask how you would pronounce that?
Well, I cheated. I looked it up. Yeah, I cheated. I'm presenting it to you, and you can cheat. You can cheat next week with the pronunciation of whatever, or not next week, whatever. Maher Shalal Hashbaz.
That's what I said.
Maher Shalal Hashbaz.
Let me just say that Sam knows quite well the fact that when it comes to difficult names in the Bible, I will sit there and I will practice them over and over and over and over again. And I will listen to them being read on like an audio Bible, just so I know that I know that I know I can pronounce them. Then I get up in front of a crowd and I can't pronounce them.
You just freeze
every single time. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah, you said you were reading one Sunday during your sermon, and you said, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name. And I was like, I have a new segment, and it will be where we read hard names from the Old Testament. So,
gee, thanks.
Yeah. It's just going to be us in like the book of like Chronicles, or like, it's like, one of them where there's just like, and this begat this, and this begat that. It's just over and over, just a pounding.
Yeah, now I have to really find a good one.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so I took that one, and next time it'll be my turn, and it'll be an egg on my face.
This is awesome.
Okay, current events. Do you have any current events you want to talk about?
I mean, like how local or how worldwide?
Does not matter.
We started a church.
Yeah, I had that one on here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, I want to hear about that. How was last night?
I think it was good. We had... So this was our last night was our first service, and so we made the Sunday night the main worship service. And we had 42 in attendance, which I was really happy with.
Yeah. A lot of people from the Fairmont area, or was there any local people?
Yes, so some folks from our church here came just to support and be there, and then we had several from like right there in the community that came out, and so that was pretty cool to see some of those folks. And I talked to one lady, and specifically she told me before service, she said, I go to a church on Sunday mornings. We don't have a Sunday night service, but I was really glad when I saw this church was going to be open again, because that really is the only church in that community.
Yeah.
And it had, for all practical purposes, shut down.
Yeah, from Katy on 250 over through to Route 19. That's it. That's it.
So she said, this is my community. She said, so I told my family, when this church starts, I'm going to start going there. And they were all like, well, you're not going to go to our church on Sunday mornings? Yeah. But she was like, it's Sunday evening, and so I have a home church I go to. But
do you know if she ever went there before? We can talk about maybe like more specifics if you know names or something afterwards. And I might even be able to
she went there like back in the 90s. So it had been a long time. But yeah, she was just like, she just came out and she said, this is my community, and my community needs this church.
At one time I thought that was pretty cool. At one time I had a list of a bunch of people's names that had used to go there. A lot of them passed away because of a generational thing, but some of them were still around. But I don't know. I think I lost all that. There was a hurricane that struck my house, and I think all the records that I had like that were on. Yeah. Actually, my first Bible, it was in its case, but it had like insulation just all over it because like one of the boxes that I had it stored away.
But it was completely protected.
Well, No, I mean the case got pretty gross.
I mean, those are always cool stories.
The Bible was fine, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean you had a case on it for a reason. So
yes.
yeah, the Bible was
cool.
fine.
You would recognize one couple that was there.
All right. Okay.
So, but and then we had some folks just from the Fairmont area that came, and yeah. I mean, it was good. It went well, and even after service, we invited everybody to hang out and come to the fellowship hall in the back, and had some snacks and coffee and water. And I think like everybody stayed and hung out for a while.
And sometimes with a community church like that, especially, things get stagnant and that kind of thing, and everybody knows each other. So when there's any type of anything in the air, they know something's off, and people will avoid it or not, for better or for worse. But with the fresh start, hopefully, that gets new interest and gets I guess you could say a revival of the area.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and there was a lot of work that went into it. So
yeah,
it felt really good to finally have that first service and go on from there. So.
Yeah, I'm glad it's working out. What else? Do you have something else?
No.
You don't have anything else? I meant to look up more headlines, and I forgot. Now, I did send you a video, and I asked you to watch the first 3 minutes of it. Ray Comfort. A lot of people are familiar with Ray. He's got a lot of good videos that kind of teach you, he has a style, of course. Like, this style may not translate to everybody, but he has a style where he goes up to people and he kind of talks to them and everything, and does a little bit of street evangelism. He's kind of respected in a lot of evangelical circles, anyway, I would say for it. So anyway, he put together a video and where he was just kind of using the tension going on in Israel to say, just be aware. He wasn't being specific in saying, this is it. It was more of a question of, could it be this easy? Just kind of keep it in mind, watch out for it, that kind of thing. So what he said was Emmanuel Macron out of Europe, out of France, has been kind of taking a lot of leadership role in his role of peacemaking and that kind of thing in Israel with the situation. And he kind of talked about that, and then he went into Emmanuel Macron's name, Emmanuel being another name for Jesus in the Bible, the Messiah, us, God with us. And then the other name, Macron, meaning mark. It's a way that it's a mark of punctuation or something like that. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up exactly.
Or is he alleging to be the gospel writer Mark?
Maybe. Okay. Mark as the name? No. So it was interesting enough. The one thing I really thought was the most interesting out of that, because we're in Christmas season, but we're also in Hanukkah season. So the one thing I thought was the most interesting about that was that in recent times he has compared himself to Jupiter, which is the equivalent to Zeus in the Roman world. And I think that's really interesting because the one thing that we saw with Antiochus Epiphanes, Epiphanes meaning he kind of gave himself that name as a God with us, or I can't remember exactly what that stands for. Epiphanes,
the great Greek conductor.
Sure,
led a symphony, I believe.
Yes. So the one thing I really thought was interesting about that was how Epiphanes kind of compared himself to Zeus. He said he was Zeus made manifest, and then you have Macron saying he wishes he could have the Jupiterian power, is what he called it. So I thought this
is weird.
I thought the comparison. It's a weird statement.
It's a weird statement
for sure. That's a weird statement. But I just thought it was really odd. I was like, that is something to think about when you read the news and the headlines, and everybody's looking for a political guy, for better or for worse, to fix everything, and then you have a guy that shows up and he says, hey, I can fix your problems.
Isn't that amazing though, that I just look at it and I go, at least in the United States, I'm trying to find an example of where somebody from the government stepped in, and we were all like, whew, thank goodness this person showed up. And yet, I feel like year after year, every 2 years, every 4 years, with our presidential elections and gubernatorial elections, we still keep going, maybe this guy can fix it all. Maybe this woman can fix it all. And it's like, when do we learn? Like, at what point do we start going, I'm going to respect the office that they're in, and I'm very involved in the political process. I vote. I do all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, like, you do feel like sometimes people really just place all their hope and their faith and their trust in these guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many times do we have to watch this fail?
Yeah.
How many times do we have to see people caught up in, like, egregious lies before we go, maybe we should start trusting something else?
Yeah, totally agree.
I don't get it.
Yeah, there was the thing with Jim Justice always gets me is how he was a Democrat and then he became a Republican. One is a Democrat and
changed his view on nothing.
Changed his view on nothing. One is a Democrat and then he changed his place to a Republican. So you had all of these Republicans who were like, well, I'm not voting for Jim Justice. Again, who didn't change anything. And then I have all these Democrats vote for him. And then the opposite happens the next election where you had a lot of Democrats are like, I'm not voting for a Republican.
Yep.
And then all the Republicans that said they weren't voting for him before, like, I'm voting for Jim Justice.
Yep.
That's called political prostitution.
Well, and that's kind of the point of a primary, is that, especially at that level, specifically when you're talking about a governor, is that primary is the people within that party that they're saying, this is the person who represents our values as the Republican Party or as the Democratic Party. And when you have someone who represents those values for the Democratic Party and then changes none of their views, but becomes a Republican, and then all of a sudden they represent those values for the Republican Party, that's when you have to start taking a step back and going, maybe it's just two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So, no, it drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I can't stand that. But either way.
Yeah.
But that is exactly, that's in, I'll get in trouble if somebody listens to this, but that's exactly what's going on in Harrison County right now for the county commission race. I know two of the people running on the Republican ticket were Democrats as of like a year ago, but you can't win as a Democrat anymore.
No.
And I mean, few and far between.
It's Trump country, yeah.
And so everybody's just switching their party. And I heard somebody say once, they said, this was like during what they call the red wave in West Virginia, and they said, give it a few years and you won't be able to tell the difference between a conservative and a Republican. And basically just pointing out you're going to be electing a letter beside the name, and yet there's actually not going to be any set of values associated with it.
Yeah.
It's just you run. And I get it. I mean, like, it's a political thing. It's a game. And so, I mean, like, I understand why they do what they do.
Yeah.
But it's still very frustrating to see that.
I think the last election that I voted in West Virginia, of course, I moved to Florida for a couple of years, but I wrote in S. Marshall Wilson, I think was who I wrote in.
He's running for governor.
Is he running?
Yeah, on the Constitutional Party.
Because before he was running as a libertarian, as a write-in, basically as the libertarian option of a write-in, kind of, or maybe it wasn't libertarian.
The libertarian had a nominee, Erica Kalinich. She ran 4 years ago. She's running again. She's going to be the libertarian nominee.
Okay, I saw her get nominated the other day, or at least I saw a post.
And Marshall Wilson, he joined the Constitutional Party, and so in the state of West Virginia, to be considered a major party, it's based on the gubernatorial election. So whoever your candidate is, if they get 1% of the vote or more, that's considered a major party in West Virginia, and you get automatic ballot access. Currently, in West Virginia, that's Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, and Mountain Party, which is essentially Green Party affiliate. The Constitutional Party exists, but they don't have ballot access. And so they're not an official major party. So that's
why he had to.
That's why he's been working on getting signatures to get ballot access. But I'll tell you, Marshall Wilson will get 1% of the vote, and then you're going to end up with 5 major parties in the state.
I did it more so as a protest vote.
Yeah,
I didn't like the way things were going, and I didn't like the whole party change thing.
If I'm not mistaken, and I mean I'd have to look it up, but I think he got over 1% of the vote as a write-in. I mean, it was that's really impressive for a write-in.
Yeah, because it was around the time of like the different lockdowns, and I had different ideas on how things should have been accomplished. Yeah. And it was sort of my protest vote.
And for what it's worth, I've met and had conversations with both Erica Kalinich and with S. Marshall Wilson, and they're both just they really are just good people.
Yeah,
they're just phenomenal people, both of them. At the end of the day, I mean, they both truly want liberty. Like that, they're very liberty minded. Now they are going to differ on a few subjects here and there, and what liberty really means, I guess. But I can say both of those candidates are really just solid,
good people.
Good people, yeah, just good people.
Good peoples.
So,
there was something else I was going to say on that, but I have ADHD. There's a meme where, or it's not a meme, it's a video where you have this guy and he's acting like an idiot, and he's I don't know what HD is, but my doctor told me I had 80 of them, and then he like jumps in the water, and my wife says that's me.
That's nice. I like that. I'm going to use that.
I don't know what HD is, but my doctor says I have ADHD. I've never been diagnosed with ADHD. My wife just tells me I have ADHD. Okay, what annoys you about Christian culture? You don't have to have one because we haven't met for a while, so it's hard to get in the groove. But I wrote one.
Go right ahead. I actually think I have one.
Church as a business seems to be really. I don't mind a church being organized. I don't mind that at all. I don't mind a church having all their money in order, all their bills paid.
You would think that's a good thing.
Way, because then if you have all your bills paid, you can help others. I like it.
Yep.
That's good. Have your house in order. But I think that it's getting taken way too far, where it's becoming a thing of push the merch.
Is this because I added electronic giving?
No, stop it. No, it's becoming push the merch, get our gear out there, get people to see so they come to church, so that way we can get more money going. Like I don't like that aspect of it, where it becomes instead of it being like what are you doing for discipleship, what are you doing, what are you teaching, that kind of thing. It becomes look how hip we are. I don't like it.
So I think it's whenever you take secular marketing techniques and you try to, you're right. You try to treat the church as a business. Now, there is something to be said about quote unquote marketing. Marketing is going to happen one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so
there's nothing wrong with, hey, find a good church. We're over here.
Yeah.
We're over here. This is what we're doing.
Or I think even if you have a logo that's like recognizable to people, where they go, oh, okay, yeah, that looks familiar. But I think we can take that to a really unhealthy level. And I'll tell you, I had heard a story of a pastor, and this was here locally. I mean, it's been a while back. I don't think the pastor doesn't even live in the area anymore. But has a board meeting.
Name him. No, I'm just joking.
What is his name? Has a board meeting and tells the board, we have to figure out ways to reach professionals in our area to get tithing up. Like, we need to reach out to nurses and lawyers and doctors. And you go, whoa, wait a minute. Didn't Jesus kind of give us this really unique call to, like, the least of these?
Yeah.
It's just kind of... I'll never forget, I was at an annual conference for the Free Methodist Church. And Bishop David Kendall was preaching that day, and he said, if you don't know where to start, find the people that need the most help and start there. And I think sometimes that's it. Like, what was it? And I don't want to like bash them, but like Saddleback Church, when they launched, they came up with, was it like Saddleback Steve or something like that, that they made an ideal person. Like, this is who we're reaching. And it was like a middle-aged, white collar, professional in the Silicon Valley area, and he has a beeper on his belt, and he he's like, how do we reach this person? Because if we reach this person, then we will reach families with that. And like so they created this whole character and geared everything toward that character. And in the process of that, you're like, well, we have to, remove anything that might be offensive, from the sanctuary, and we have to. I just think we can go way too far. And there comes a point in which, when we're talking about what the church is existing to do, like what's happening in church, is that Jesus has called us to go into the world and make disciples. And when we talk about worship, and I think I had posted about this on Facebook not too long ago, but I said worship is supposed to be otherworldly. And what I mean by that is that you should not be able to get that anywhere else. Worship is very unique.
Yeah.
It's weird. And it's supposed to be. And so if you are, evangelism, when it comes to evangelism and reaching people with the gospel, you know what? You do need to build some inroads. And there needs to be some things that are, like, I don't have a problem with like trying to attract people in some way to something that's going on, and you have a big event, you do some, for evangelistic
the community outreach with the kids.
Right.
Perfect. That's great.
But if you gear your worship service for an evangelism, what you're doing is you're neglecting those who are Christians in their discipleship.
Yeah.
And so worship is not intended for evangelism, and it's not intended for those who are non-Christians. It's intended for Christians to worship.
Yeah.
Now, non-Christians are absolutely welcome, and truth be told, they should walk out of that service going, that was weird. Because it is.
Yeah.
It should be. It is otherworldly. And so, yeah, I think we can easily just try to make the church look like any other business, and we reduce it down to a concert and a TED Talk. And when we've reduced it down to a concert and a TED Talk, I can go on YouTube and get that.
Right.
I no longer need a community. I can listen to better music on YouTube. I can listen to a better sermon on YouTube.
Yeah.
And but if the church is something different than that, if it is actually this moment in which the church on earth enters into the heavenly worship that's happening in the temple, and like heaven and earth are really meeting in this place, and it's weird and it's different and you can't get this anywhere else, that's what it should be. That's where I want to be.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think you have a major problem with, and I think I've talked about this before, maybe I haven't, I don't remember. When we lived in Florida, we went to this Easter egg hunt in Venice, and which was a town neighboring to the north of where we lived at. So we go to this egg hunt, and it's hosted by a church. They drop the eggs in from a helicopter on a football field. I heard Jesus, we're here for the resurrection of Jesus. One time, maybe twice at the most. I was there for probably an hour and a half, maybe an hour, because they had different games and stuff going on. And I heard, brought to you by State Farm, at least 10 times.
So State Farm sponsored the egg drop for the church?
Yeah. I literally walked around. Alyssa got annoyed with me. I literally walked around our house going, the resurrection of Jesus Christ brought to you by State Farm. I mean, literally for like 2 or 3 weeks after that.
Wow.
Just that sort of marketing, because at that point you have a business. You have at that point you have a business. It wasn't good. I didn't like it at all. You did nothing for anybody except for load kids up with food coloring candy, and that was pretty much it. You didn't do anything for anybody.
Could you imagine if we ran commercials in like the middle of a worship service?
Oh, that's coming. Oh, for sure.
I guarantee it.
Somebody does it already.
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody does it already. They have to.
I want to find the church that's doing that right now.
Somebody has to do that already.
Okay. Well, this is kind of maybe off the topic, but I'll take my shot at what annoys me in Christian culture.
Okay.
Maybe it connects. My wife and I, we went to Tennessee a year ago or something. And so Sunday morning rolls around, and we say, let's find a place to go. And there was a church there, and I say this in the nicest way possible. You pull into the parking lot, and you just watch the people that are going in and the design of the building, and you go,
this is a bit much.
This is going to be fun. Right? So we go in, and it's like, you walk in, they have merch. They
got the merch.
They got the merch.
They got the coffee mugs. They got the shirts. They got the long sleeves, the short sleeves.
And again, like, I'm not necessarily opposed, to some of those things. But there is something that feels weird when it's like, make sure you come see our store where you can buy your church T-shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a little different, and I'm sure they would push back and go, well, you guys do church T-shirt orders sometimes, and okay, sure. So I don't want to be too critical on that, or coffee. Who doesn't like coffee? But they had people that were they were live reporting from a parade.
Yeah.
That was roped off, and it's like, we're here at the, Ebenezer Fellowship Church,
that's terrible,
live in person. I mean, and it was like, what? And they're broadcasting this on TVs all throughout it was a bit much.
Yeah.
All right. And then we're walking in, and they have this big sign that says auditorium, and I thought, why not a sanctuary? There seemed to be this sense that you're ripping away the holy from it. And so it's like, oh, okay. And we go in. And you know how we have our band here that they will play a song right at 10:45 or right close. Yeah,
it's kind of a soft intro to the service.
It's kind of to let everybody know we're getting ready to start.
Yeah,
even
a lot of churches that I've been to in the past that do that, the piano player will go up and just kind of play a soft melody. It's like, hey, everybody.
Yep, it's to let you know
you got a couple minutes here.
It's getting ready to start and kind of get everybody focused. Yeah. Psalms of ascent, if you will.
Yeah.
But their opening were two people that came out clogging to some secular country song.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And it was like, this is a little awkward.
Yeah, that's terrible.
No, they were good. They were very good. But it was like, okay, apart from the fact that you're clogging, sure. You know what? I'm going to give you that. Let's dance before the Lord. And they're talented individuals because it's Tennessee. It's Pigeon Forge. We actually saw at least the one girl later on in a show that we went to. But I'm like, couldn't we at least put some Jesus to the music?
Yeah.
So it was weird.
Yeah, that would be.
So we're there. They start the message, and I think the first song was it was that. It's a Mary, Mary, I think. Take the shackles off my feet so I can dance. I want to pray. I just want to praise you. Just want to pray. Okay, cool. And then the pastor was going through a sermon series, and the next song they played to transition from worship to the sermon series was Footloose. Kick off your Sunday shoes.
There's nothing that screams worship like a Kevin Bacon movie to me.
And they had the lyrics and everything up on the screens for you to sing. It was
yeah.
Well, you know what? I actually pulled my phone out. I was like, nobody will believe me. Nobody will believe me.
Yeah, you have to video at that point.
Well, because I was like, as bad as I know I probably sound so judgmental saying this, but it's like, I'm not in church anymore.
Yeah, no, you're at a concert.
I don't know where I am.
Yeah.
So I just start recording, and I'm looking at my wife, and she's looking at me like, can you, what is
that's really
going
bad.
on here?
Yeah, that's really bad.
It was. I will tell you, and this might sound dramatic, but honest to goodness, we left that place, and I got in the car, and I just started crying. I started crying, and because I was like, this was a big church.
Yeah.
I was like, how do we come to this?
Yeah, that's pretty
like,
bad.
How, like, it actually, at some level, like, it really broke my heart.
Oh, for sure. That's,
it was funny, but then after I got over, like, can you believe this? Then it just, like, there was something about it that just got me.
I feel like that's one of the things that if I went to that, I would get in the car and I would just sit there and nobody would say a word for a long time. And then my wife would come with some, like, whimsical thing from the back because she's with the baby. She'd come with some whimsical thing from the back. And I'd be like, yeah, that was pretty weird, wasn't it?
Oh,
that's pretty bad.
That was unforgettable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Do you have a Christian nuance that you want to say, or you just want to get to the biblical topic?
No, just get to it. That was my.
You can save yours, which maybe they even rolled into each other. Sometimes that happens. All right, so we're in Christmas season, and yesterday.
We're in Advent, actually, sir.
Well, okay.
Advent, not Christmas. Did you even listen yesterday?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. We're in Advent season.
Leading up to Christmas.
Leading up to Christmas. Thank you. Anyway, before I was rudely interrupted, somebody's going to complain about that cough. They're going to be like, why did he have to cough in there?
It was so loud. It was so loud.
And Austin keeps sipping his coffee. That's more for the complaints department. So
just put it in the comments.
Just put it in the comments. What I want to talk about today is, what does sonship mean in Hebraic thought, or rather like in biblical thought? What does sonship mean?
Gosh, I'm so glad you gave me so much time to think this through.
Yeah, I really didn't do any favors on this one. I'm sorry.
This reminds me of like the little video of Trump whenever he gets off the plane and he's informed that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and he's like, "Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know anything about this. You're telling me this for the very first time."
Yeah, I apologize about that. Anyway,
it's fine. I mean, I consider myself an expert in Hebraic thought when it comes to sonship anyway, so we're good to go.
All that is fancy lingo for, Old Testament kind of, even...
What does it mean to be a son in Judaism, and specifically in an Old Testament context?
I'm getting there, hang on. All right, John 21.
That's not the Old Testament.
Stop it. Just wait. John 21, verse 15. So if you recall, Jesus is talking to Peter, and he says, "So when they had denied, Jesus saith to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonah, lovest thou more than these?" And then it continues, but I didn't want to read the rest of it, just to focus on the son of Jonah. So, his dad may have been named Jonah. There's that. Yeah, maybe he was named Jonah. But there's also parallels between Peter and Jonah, where, let's see, I wrote a couple down, so I might as well read them. Jonah is hesitant to take the message to Gentile Nineveh, and then we also see Peter kind of do the same thing in Acts. I think it's chapter 10. I wrote chapter 10 down, so hopefully that's right. Anyway, Acts chapter 10. Jonah changes his mind after 3 days and 3 nights, and then I think it was Peter who changed his mind. Was it 3 times the vision was told? I should have probably checked that before I did this. Anyway, but there's a couple parallels anyway between Peter and Jonah, so that the idea of somebody being the son of something isn't necessarily has to do with actually genetics. It could be somebody that comes in the character of, or somebody that plays out kind of the narrative of. Matthew chapter 1 verse 1, we get this is the genealogy of Jesus, the son of Abraham, the son of David. Yeah, sure, he's in the lineage of Abraham and David, sure. But at the same time, he also comes in the character of David. There's quite a few parallels between Jesus and David, where David was, successful in his military campaigns, and Solomon saw a lot of peace because of David's success. The temple was built in Solomon's time. All those things partly or mostly due to the fact that David was a very successful king and driving out and having a unified Israel. And we see that kind of same thing. Israel hasn't been united in how long? Where, now there's an Israel and everything, and there's probably members of all 12 tribes, some lineage and heritage still around. But, for the most part, a lot of people consider the 10 northern tribes lost. So we haven't seen like a real nice united Israel since before the Assyrian days, when after Solomon's reign they were taken, and then the whole Assyrian captivity happened to the 10 northern tribes. So with that being said, you can draw parallels between people that way. Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to bring up with that was, you kind of talked about it yesterday. One Messiah, two Advents, right? Mm-hmm. One Messiah, two Advents. Whereas in Judaism, they have kind of the thought, and this is just another thing of how close Judaism can get to the truth without accepting Jesus. Like, how close can you possibly get without saying, oh, it's Jesus?
Yeah.
They have two concepts they have concerning Messiah. So they essentially say it's two Messiahs, one Advent on them. So they have Messiah ben Joseph, and ben just meaning the son of, or bar if it's in Aramaic. You might see bar as well. I think there's one place in the scripture where I think it's Peter's called
Bar Jonah.
Bar Jonah. That's the Aramaic equivalent to the Hebrew ben. So you have Messiah ben Joseph and you have Messiah ben David, where they recognize all the passages where they say, oh, this is about the Messiah. He comes and he suffers and everything. That is about the Messiah for sure. And then they say, but that's a different Messiah. That's another Messiah. And then we have a second Messiah that's going to come in like David, because of all the parallels of the kingship and everything that we just kind of talked about with that. Mm-hmm. How close you can get to the truth without actually obtaining it. And that's another thing I try to keep up with people as well when they talk about the blindness of Israel. It says they're blind in part. So blindness in part is how you come up with that concept without coming to the real truth of it. But it's not to say, because we kind of look at that in Christianity and we say, okay, you know what? There's tons of parallels between Jesus and Joseph. I think there's upward counts of almost 60, depending on which one you want to look at. Which people tracking. So I saw as low as 40 and as many as like 75. So depending on which group you want to track with, and you can read into those all yourself. But he was betrayed by his brothers. He was sold to the Gentiles. He was sold for silver. All of these things, it was conspiracy against Joseph. It was conspiracy against Jesus. We see all these parallels where you're like, wow, Jesus really did come in the character of Joseph. So there is something to be said about Messiah ben Joseph. There's a lot of thought to that's pretty good thought. If you want to touch on that or a little bit or say anything.
What was coming to mind was Mark chapter 12, whenever you were talking about how close you can get and still be wrong.
Yeah.
So we've been working through on Wednesday nights, we've been working through the Gospel of Mark. And in Mark chapter 12, Jesus shares this parable about the wicked vine dressers, right? And about a man who plants a vineyard and he leaves it for, hires, these vine dressers to take care of it. And when it's time to get the harvest and he sends a servant, they kill the servant.
Yeah.
Right? And they beat up another one. And finally he says, well, I'll send my son. And it's the gospel. I mean, that's what this parable is. It's right. The gospel. And they kill the son. And then that's when Jesus quotes from Psalm 118, I think, when he says, have you not read the scriptures? So to the religious folks, have you not read the scriptures? The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. This was the Lord's doing. It's marvelous in our eyes. And it says, and they sought to lay hands on him, but feared the multitude, for they knew he had spoken the parable against them. As they were the vine dressers, they were the ones that were killing stoning the prophets, and they're the ones that would also kill the Son of God. And so, I mean, it is a claim to him being Messiah. But then it goes right from that section into the Pharisees come to him and they're trying to trap him in his words. So they're asking him about the lawfulness of paying taxes to Caesar. And then the Sadducees, another religious order, come to him, and they're questioning and have questions about the resurrection and about marriage and who's going to be the wife and the husband in the resurrection if there's more than one, and all that. And then the scribes come to him, and the scribes are talking to him, and they ask, which is the first of the commandment of all? What's the first commandment of all? And Jesus answers, the first of the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second like it is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. And the scribe said to him, Well said, teacher. You have spoken the truth. For there is one God, and there is no other but He. And to love Him with all your heart, and with all your understanding, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself, is more than all the whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. In other words, they're saying, you're right, we agree with you.
Yeah.
Now when Jesus saw that he answered wisely, he said to them, You are not far from the kingdom of God. Which is just a fascinating statement. That he looks at the scribes and he says, You are not far from the kingdom of God. And after this, no one dared to question him. Then it goes right into, Then Jesus answered and said, while he taught in the temple, How is it that the scribes say that the Christ is the son of David? For David himself said by the Holy Spirit, The Lord said to my Lord, Sit at my right hand. This is Psalm 110, I believe. Sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. Therefore David himself calls him Lord. How is he then his son? And the common people heard him gladly. Then he said to them in his teaching, Beware of the scribes, who desire to go around in long robes, love greetings in the marketplaces, the best seats in the synagogues, and the best places at feasts, who devour widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers. These will receive greater condemnation. That whole segment, he does not say beware of the Pharisees. He does not say beware of the Sadducees. He says beware of the scribes. And it was the scribes that he also said, essentially, like, you're not far from the kingdom of God. Yeah. Like, you're really close. Like you almost have this thing.
Yeah.
But then he turns around and he says, beware of the scribes. And I think it's a real warning for
it gets dangerous
to
sometimes.
Beware of those that are really close.
Yeah.
But they're not there.
Yeah.
They're not in.
Yeah, and I think one thing that because I've seen a lot of people post about it, and it's kind of popular. Jordan Peterson's commentary, or whatever you could say, lessons, or whatever he was hosting about Exodus.
I have not listened to that, but I've heard about it.
I haven't listened to it, but this is somebody, if you listen to him speak, this is somebody, from me, what I think, it sounds like he's flirting with Christianity. And he's just based off other interviews, podcasts I've listened to with him, smart guy. He's flirting with Christianity, is what it in effect sounds like. And yeah, some of the things that he says is going to be true, but you need to be careful for that exact same reason, because he's not a professed Christian. And some of those things he's going to take in a more worldly, or be able to twist or do whatever, that is not going to be in the right context of what's actually happening. And that's not to say that he won't get there, but you listen to him and you say, this is a man that almost has it, but he doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. And so to kind of just back up what you said with the practical person of what's popular right now, I would suggest that for looking at you and I can look at that. We've been Christians for a long time. We like to read the Bible. We like to study the Bible. And sometimes we open up ourselves to other teachings that may not be considered mainstream evangelical. Like you like some of the Eastern Church, Eastern Orthodox.
Oh yeah,
stuff
I love
to listen to.
I love listening to Eastern Christianity.
And I like a lot of Jewish things, even though they deny their own Messiah. But because I like to be challenged. The same thing with you. You're never really going to know. And plus, you don't want to get in an echo chamber where everything you hear is everybody that agrees with you.
Yeah.
So I just would throw that out as kind of a caution as well.
Yeah, and I think also maybe at least in that passage, there's this point being made that clearly what Jesus is doing and teaching is different from the Pharisees. Clearly, what Jesus is doing and teaching is different from the Sadducees. But when it comes to the scribes, it's like the scribes are trying to buddy up and be like, we're not that far apart.
Yeah.
We're pretty close. And it reminds me of, you can think of heretical groups, unorthodox groups that label themselves as Christians.
Right.
But when you actually dig into it, they can't affirm, what we know as the basic tenets of the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And that's really problematic.
Yeah. What was it when they got back from Babylon and they began rebuilding the temple? Was it they came to Zerubbabel? I think they came to Zerubbabel, and they said they wanted to worship with him. I forget what group it was. There was a group that came to them and said, "Hey, we want to worship you. We serve the same God. We sacrifice to him too." But the only place that you were allowed to sacrifice at was the temple. Everything else was void. There was no other place. It was the Jerusalem temple. Once that was established, that was it. As far as kind of your very holy Yom Kippur, Passover, all those things were to be done there. So I think what you have is sort of the same thing where it's let's go down and let's say, hey, we want to help you because we serve the same God. We want to do that. And I think Zerubbabel just sort of looked at him and said, we don't have anything in common. We're not the same. Mm-hmm. Like I'd have to refamiliarize because it's been a long time since I've read that. But I think that's what it is. And somebody is going to be like, no, that's not what it is. It was blah, 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 and it was this. But yeah, I'm doing the best I can off of my random memory with that. The other thing that I think Zechariah the prophet also brings up is the whole cornerstone, and then later on you see they accuse Jesus of being a false prophet. Of course, in the gospel message, they accuse Jesus of being a false prophet. But you see in that sort of same vicinity in Zechariah, where did you get those wounds on your hands? Well, these were the wounds I was wounded in the house of my friends. So there's a lot of things going on there. But I think just to back up what it means to be the Son of God, because we've kind of established what does it mean to come in the character of David, the character of Joseph. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to be the Son of God? It doesn't mean that he's literally descended from God. It doesn't mean that God created him, because that's one of the things you have to reconcile. Well, how's he God's son and he wasn't created, but yet he's God's son? How's that work? Think of it more like, and we got to be careful here so I'm not heretical. Don't worry,
I'll call you out on it.
Think about it more like
throw the table.
The one that comes on behalf of God, or the one that comes in the character of God to mankind. That's more the thought of what does it mean to be the Son of God. It's not a literal Son of God as much as it is, there's the whole portion that happens with the Holy Spirit and Mary was made pregnant. Yes, of course. But as far as Jesus being an eternal being and how you reconcile that with he's the Son of God it is more like he comes in the character or becomes on behalf of God to mankind. That would be how I would probably try to explain it to somebody that's maybe struggling with that.
I mean, and I think it's just important also to distinguish, like, he is God.
Right.
And one term I've often heard used is the God-man.
Yes.
And that's kind of affirming this. Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man.
Yes.
And so when we say Jesus is 100% God, he is. And he's 100% man or human.
Yes.
The Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. And so, I think we try to figure those things out in our head, like, well, how does God have a son?
Right.
But you realize, no, this is God. Like there, but yet there's also this amazing mystery that he grew. He grew into this too. Like, yeah. He grew in grace and knowledge, and it's like, man, this is,
yeah.
It's not like Jesus was born and was like, here I am, guys.
Right.
Let's go.
There was a level of consciousness that had to be developed where it was like, oh, I am the Messiah.
But at the same time, he's 12 years old and he's teaching, the experts of the law in the temple. And so you have to also go, yeah, he's not just any...
Right. He's not your average
12-year-old.
Yeah. When I was 12, I rode my bike, and I remember this one time we were riding up in a cow field, and I was poking a cow patty with a stick and trying to throw it at my sister. That's what I did when I was 12.
Right. Yeah. I thought you would be teaching people in church or something.
I wasn't doing that.
I waited until I was 14 to do that.
Well,
True story. Anyway, I think actually Becca and I were just talking about this. My wife, just a few weeks ago, I said it's just such a mystery. It's so fascinating because yes, he grows into this and he's born as an infant, and it's not like infant Jesus being 100% God is going around feeding himself either. He needs a mother, and he needs to be taken care of. And you know what? He needs his, cloth diaper changed, and he needs to be fed, and he needs to be put to bed. And this is God in the flesh, and yet, this is why it's so critical to understand what it means that God humbled himself.
Yeah.
That Jesus laid aside...
He's trying to talk about Philippians.
Yeah, Philippians.
How it opens up
2. Yeah, that, and I think I've heard this recently, that some would say Jesus completely laid aside his divinity, and he was just human. He wasn't divine. He was just human, and this is actually some of the basis of the prosperity health wealth gospel is that he was just human, and because he did all of these things as a human who was following God, because he laid all that aside, that's why we have this, authority and right and so on and so forth, which is heretical. To be very clear on that.
I think there's a video online where Joel Osteen's wife, it was kind of a popular one that people were like, hey, look out for this, where she was saying some of those same things, that he was just an ordinary man. And so it was like,
it's like, no, he's God in the flesh. Yeah. Like, there is no one else that's 100% God and 100% human. Like, this is unique.
Yeah, everybody mistakes what was happening. Not everybody mistakes it, but there's a lot of people that mistake what was actually happening with the temptation from Satan. What was happening was Satan was trying to tempt Jesus into using his power to do his own will, whereas Jesus, the whole time, is putting aside his own divinity and he's following the will of the Father. Mm-hmm. And so he says, do this, do that. Of course, Jesus could absolutely have done it right then and there because he's God. But he says, no, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to go with the will of the Father, and we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. That's not what we're going to do here. That's not my mission on this earth. That's not what this is about. And so I think that that's what we should recognize as well with that, is that by all authority, he could have done those things. If he was an ordinary man, he couldn't have done them. Why? Right. That doesn't even make any sense. Why would Satan tempt an ordinary man in that manner?
Mm-hmm. Philippians 2 that we were talking about, starting verse 5, it says, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men. And being found in the appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death on the cross. Therefore God has also has highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, and every of those in heaven and those of earth and of those under the earth, and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And so exactly what you're saying, he became obedient.
Right.
He laid aside his own desires and will to be obedient to the will of the Father. And so I think that's an important point to make, that he's not laying aside his divinity. Jesus remains fully divine.
Right. I think a good study to do with that, and that kind of kept coming up because I was part of a Bible study where they were going over Philippians, and the one thing that was really difficult to not bring up over and over again, we'll close with this. The one thing that was really difficult to not bring up over and over again when studying Philippians is the branch of, and then insert either the branch of David, the branch of let's see, what else did he have? He had my servant, the branch. There's 4 times where the Messiah is referred to as the branch. You've got the branch of Jehovah. I think that one's in Zechariah. You've got the branch of David, where I can't remember what's that, and that might also be in Zechariah. I can't remember. I don't remember. Anyway, right. Maybe it's in Jeremiah. I don't remember. Anyway, Jeremiah, Zechariah, and I think the other one's in Isaiah, where it talks about the branch and the Messiah. My servant, the branch, the man whose name is the branch, and the branch of Jehovah. Well, anyway, all of those things just really keep coming up when you study Philippians in that beginning, in those chapters 1 and 2, and you look at that. But Jeremiah chapter 23, there's 2 of them in Zechariah, and the other one's in Isaiah, I believe. But I really recommend those studies because you start to see how those 4 branch names reflect kind of the gospel, and how Matthew opens up and it's Jesus is the son of David. John opens up, Jesus is the son of God. Luke opens up, Jesus is the son of man, because it traces the the genealogy all the way back to Adam. So you start to see over and over and over again where those things are kind of playing out, and I think that that's a really good study for people to do, to kind of understand all those aspects, personality about Jesus. Yeah,
that's why I think, and I don't remember where I stole it from, but when somebody said, if you want to know about Jesus, read Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the Synoptic Gospels, because you learn about him. You learn about what he did. If you want to know the heart of Jesus, read the Gospel of John. And it is distinct, between of the 4 Gospels. It is distinct, and not better than, but it just has a different purpose.
That's how I took it.
Okay, fine, better than. No. But I think just from the very beginning, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. The Word was God. It's like all these other ones, like we're taking it back to this, the genealogy. John just comes out in a theological standpoint. And in essence, it's like, I'm not concerned about genealogy. I want to make sure you understand that he's God.
Yeah. And Zechariah, that same piece of scripture that we already talked about, Zechariah, where it said, these are the wounds I was wounded in the house of my friends. A couple of the next verses down says... the man who is my equal is exactly what it says. It's God talking. And it says, the man who is my equal is what it says. And I really Zechariah is a fantastic book. I love Zechariah. It's probably my favorite book in of itself. Like if somebody's like, hey, what's your favorite book? I'd probably go with Zechariah.
I have not read Zechariah in probably 2 years. I need to go.
It's probably my favorite.
Thank you. I'm going to go read it.
Do it.
I'm going to go read it.
Do it. All right. You got anything else?
We appreciate you tuning in to the Chip and Joanna Gaines podcast, where we've talked about how to remodel your house.
We've yet to mention this sensory rug that we have.
We talked about it, but now we have it on video.
Yeah, now we have it on video where everybody can see our carpet Jesus. This was carpet Jesus right here. He's nice, and you can take comfort in brushing his hair and his beard. We can just say, so nice to see you.
Maybe next week we can introduce you to the lipstick disciples.
Yeah. There's a very unsettling picture in another room where the disciples are all wearing lipstick. It appears
our deacon here at the church, Ed, he listened to the podcast before, and he came up to me, and you just have to know Ed. But Ed goes, "I'm guessing you filmed or you recorded your podcast in my Sunday school room." Because this is where he teaches Sunday school. And I started laughing. I was like, "Carpet Jesus," and he was laughing. He said his wife found this on a shelf somewhere here, so they hung it up.
What would you do if you're like, why's this stupid thing here? And like, there's like a giant hole back here or something.
It's a safe. It's actually a safe.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. No, I'm done.
All right. You know what would have been a good podcast name? Carpet Jesus. That would have been a beautiful podcast name had we not picked two Gentiles. You know, the other one I looked at was Two Stupid Idiots, but it was already taken. All right.
We can always change it to Carpet Jesus.
We're out of here. Peace.